Hello and welcome back to the Midwest Charge channel. You joined me this morning on a road trip. We are headed from Dayton, Ohio down to Florida to visit family for Thanksgiving, and right now we are headed to the Powell, Tennessee Supercharger. It is about 296 miles or so, and we are slated for a 4:30 a.m. arrival. We started at midnight, and it's about 12:30 a.m. now, so we've got quite a bit of ground to cover, and it's the day before Thanksgiving, so fingers crossed we don't have too much traffic, but we'll see how it goes. Welcome from Crittenden, Kentucky. We are 83 miles, 1 hour and 13 minutes into this road trip, 237 watt-hour per mile. That's our current efficiency. I'll see you at the next check-in. Join me at 2 hours into our drive. We've done 143 miles, getting 248 watt-hour per mile, which is just a hair over 4 miles per kilowatt hour. I've been doing 76 indicated, which is actually 75 miles an hour. The speedometer is about 1 mile an hour off on this car. Since we crossed the border from Ohio to Kentucky, we've got 54% state of charge and another 2.5 hours to go before we stop. I was originally going to stop at the Supercharger in Powell, Tennessee. It's a 24-stall V3, 250 kilowatt station, but there is a Supercharger in downtown Knoxville that is a little farther down the road that it looks like we can reach. It's estimating a 3% arrival right now, and if we're lucky, if we can actually get there around 3%, then we may end up stretching it to the EVgo on the far side of Knoxville and just turning this into a CCS road trip. Welcome back. We are just passing the Buc-ees in Richmond, Kentucky. A 12-stall Supercharger. And we are at 47%, so we are not stopping. We've currently driven 164 miles. We've been on the road for 2 hours and 18 minutes, and we're averaging 250 watt-hour per mile exactly, or 4 miles per kilowatt hour. According to the GPS, we should be arriving to the Supercharger in Knoxville, Tennessee at 2%, so I will likely be pushing it to the EVgo that is a few miles down the road. That that should give us a 1 or 0% arrival. And yeah, it's been pretty chilly this morning. Started at just a couple minutes before midnight, around 32 degrees, and it has warmed up, if you can call it warm, to 39 degrees, but 39 is still not very warm, so I'm looking forward to the warmer temperatures as we continue to travel farther south. Anyway, I'll see you again at 25%. Alright, I'm starting to think that the route planner might be a little bit confused. This is the first long trip that this car has been on, but this clip is only being recorded maybe 2 minutes after the Buc-ees clip, and the navigation now says that I'll arrive with 7%. Or no, now it just ticked down to 6%. So it seems to be a little bit all over the place, but as long as the estimate doesn't fall below 1%, then I think we'll be just fine. We are now passing London, Kentucky, which is the site of another supercharger, a 14 stall, if I remember correctly, at a Welcome Center and a McDonald's. In my previous vehicle, a 2023 Model Y Long Range, that would have been our first charging stop. But we're still at 32%, 98 miles to go, with an estimated 5% arrival in Knoxville, Tennessee. Now, that 5% is to the supercharger. We're probably going to push it to the EV Go at the Pilot truck stop, leaving Knoxville, so more like a 2 or 3% arrival estimate right now. But still, we're doing great. Almost 3 hours in, 2 hours 55 minutes, 210 miles traveled, and still right around that 250 watt-hour per mile mark. Welcome back. We are in Knoxville, Tennessee, about 3 miles from the supercharger. We are not going to make it to the other end of Knoxville on this charge. Currently at 2% battery, 3 miles away, and it's been a pretty good drive. We've driven 304 miles, 4 hours and 18 minutes so far. It'll probably total out to 4:21, 4 hours 22 minutes, something around there. And our average over this entire leg of the journey has been 248 watt-hour per mile. According to the Tesla route planner here, we're going to be pulling into the supercharger on Brookview Center Way. And despite the fact that it is 4:15 in the morning, the supercharger is half full, so we'll, Alright guys, I missed my exit. So it looks like we are going to be taking a U-turn here in about 1.5 miles with a 0% arrival to the supercharger now. We got 1% right now. It is showing 4 miles of range left. We have 4.8 miles to go, so we should be alright. But just in case, we're going to turn off the cabin heating for a couple of minutes and just gently bring the speeds up here to about 60 miles an hour, so 5 miles under the speed limit, but there's not too much traffic, so we should be alright. On past travels, I've stopped at the Powell, Tennessee Supercharger, and the EVO on the other side of Knoxville here, but this is a new one. We have some power limit here, probably 50% power remaining, still at 1% battery, and we're taking the exit. I would love to move the phone and illustrate this, but we're going to need both hands on the wheel here, and I believe this is my left. regen, get as much energy back into the battery as we can. 1%, 2 miles rated range remaining, 3 miles to go. Live projection 0.00% arrival. Well, this was far more interesting than I had intended. Alright, we need to go to the left. We're going to be hopping back on I-40 East. 1.8 miles back to exit 383. Just gentle accelerations back onto the highway here. Making sure we're staying out of people's way, but not going too quickly. Set it to 65 miles an hour. We are now at 0% with 2.3 miles to go. There is a buffer below zero on Teslas. The navigation is convinced that we will make it. So it says 0% on arrival. It keeps oscillating between no errors and charging needed to reach destination. But we're less than 2 miles away. Should be no problem. Alright, we're taking the exit now for Paper Mill Road. Just going to come off of 65 here shortly. We are now slowing down. Not holding up anybody. Just nice and easy into the station. Currently, it says there should be 3 stalls available on arrival. A few miles up the road from here is a version 2 supercharger. 8-stall location, I believe. 7 or 8 stalls. And that one is totally empty. But I'd really like to get to this VD3 because we're at such low state of charge that we can really take advantage of the greater than 150 kilowatt charge speed for quite a while before we need to move on. So, the Powell, Tennessee Supercharger, which is, I want to say, 10-12 miles farther north, is a 24 stall, and I believe it was put in to alleviate some of the stress on this charger. However, there is not another V3 leaving Knoxville aside from this one. So it continues to get a lot of usage. Perfect. The navigation has now updated and says that there are 7 open stalls. So there may be 1 person, or it might be an empty station. We'll see. Let's just take a left here, pull on into the New York Life parking lot. And up here on our left there is a Tesla Model Y leaving. Aero wheels, got a van, probably camping for the night, a parked Model 3, and a Model Y Performance. That Model 3, oh, and a white Model Y as well. Alright. Go ahead and park. Yeah, these 2 Teslas are probably patrons of the Courtyard Marriott that is just above us here over the retaining wall. I'll see you in a moment. Alright guys, we have made it to our first charge stop. 312 miles from the beginning, 4 hours and 28 minutes in, 246 watt hour per mile, and yes, that is 0% battery. Let's go plug in. Oh, somebody left their lovely drink. Take 2. Alright guys, charge is ramping up now. We're up to 177 kilowatts at 178 at 3%, plugged in at 0. And interestingly, the first supercharger I plugged into 2 spaces down from that Model Y charging, was not working. It was just blinking on and off, ready to charge, no charger plugged in, ready to charge, over and over. So we had to unplug, move a few stalls over, but we're getting good power now, already up to 200 kilowatts. We should see the ramp to 250 here in maybe a minute. Yep, 213, 216, 219, 221. It's a pretty gradual ramp, but love to see these speeds. All right, I'm guessing the battery is probably a little bit cold because the heat pump is just going full bore right now, and we're only hitting 240 kilowatts, which is really good, really fast, but not quite that 250 kilowatt peak speed that I would expect to see on this battery. So while this continues charging, let's figure out where we're going to go next. I believe that we're going to go down to, let's see here. So if I reorient the map, oops. If I reorient the map, and we go farther down, let's do Adairsville. I'm probably mispronouncing that. I apologize for everyone who lives there. Georgia, 149 miles away. So we probably don't need too much energy, maybe 50-55% battery, and then we can take off. We're still pulling 235 kilowatts at 11%. So again, the battery's probably a bit chilly, but so far so good. No issues at all. See the steam coming off of the Model 3 as it charges. Alright, take a look at something interesting here. So we are at 30% state of charge. It has been 7 minutes. And the map here says that we have -5% to get to the next supercharger 149 miles down the road. Now this is a very efficient car, but it will not go 149 miles on 35% or 34%. I find this behavior just kind of baffling from the route planner, because Tesla has such great route planning, and it is really, really amazing at figuring out what you're doing once you're on the road. But sometimes when you're charging the car, while the car is stationary, the route planner just does some really goofy calculations. So keep an eye on that if you're ever on a road trip. I would be a little concerned about leaving immediately when it says you can leave, because it's probably accounting for you driving 55 miles an hour or some very low speed when it first comes up to 0. The way that this works is there is a setting under, let's see, settings, trip planner. If you turn off the trip planner, it will not add supercharger stops to your route. I have this disabled because I like to show up to superchargers pretty low, and the route planner does not. It shows up low enough, but not low enough for me personally. You can get a little bit better of a charging session the lower the car is on charge, specifically with Tesla. So I like to show up as close to 0 as possible, although I don't like to miss my exit and show up at 0. So yeah, just keep an eye on that. Breakfast. So you'll notice we're at 45% now, but the supercharger estimate still says we're only going to get there at 2. And that is part of what I'm talking about. It went to 0% estimated arrival at 35%, but it hasn't gone up 10% since then, even though the battery has gone up 10%. So for some reason, it just seems to sit at 2% for a really long time, and then once it gets to like 5% or over, it's most of the time pretty accurate. But for some reason, these calculations while the car is charging just seem very off. We are now approaching 50%. Still doing 108 kilowatts, so it looks like our charge curve is right on track again. The battery is finally warmed up enough, and it was probably warm enough around 30%, but for sure everything is toasty warm as it should be. So we'll be departing here probably in a few percent. I'll see you in a minute. It is 4:43 a.m. We plugged in at 4:28 to this stall specifically, meaning in about 15 minutes we have onboarded 41 kilowatt hours, which is just over half the battery. All right, everybody, we are getting ready to leave. We're at 54% right now. I'm just waiting for it to tick over to 55, doing 94 kilowatts, so we've fallen below 100. I don't usually like to stay very long after 50%, if I can help it. We have an estimated arrival of 8% to Adairsville, Georgia, so let's get rolling. Alright guys, we have arrived in Adairsville, Georgia at the Taco Bell. We're at 4%. We're going to plug in real quick. Then we need to go see if Taco Bell is open first. Communicating. Gotta love the fast handshake. 4%. Just hop in real quick. And here we go. 165. 166. Let's see if we can get it to ramp up here. $200. Come on, you can do 250. We saw 240 kilowatts peak at the last stop, so I'm really hoping to hit at least 250 here. We're only getting 215, 216. That is unfortunate, but not that much less than 250, so I'll just let it sit. It's probably a problem with this station. Anyway, let's go see if they're open. Just got out, decided to check, and the handle is ice cold, so it doesn't seem like some kind of power limitation from the station having just charged another car. It's just going slow. Alright guys, they were not open. Looks like the lobby opens at 9, and it is currently 6:55 in the morning. So we're just going to hold out for the next stop, and hopefully this will be quick. Still charging. You can hear the fans absolutely ripping. 2 power cabinets here. This is just a little 8-stall just down the road from the Buc-ees, which is, I believe, 15-20 miles north here, with a much larger supercharger installation. So let's see if we can find our next stop. So let's do... Oh, there we go. Now the maps are loading. Okay. So let's take a look at Fort Valley, Georgia. This is the next Buc-ees on the route. There we go. Looks like it'll be 156 miles. So not too much farther, 6-7 miles farther than our last run. So we'll probably do another charge to 55%, maybe 56, but we arrived with 4%, so we had buffer. So yeah, we'll just keep charging and unplug here shortly. Now, one nice thing is from 4 to 23% so far, we've been getting the same just flat 210, 215 kilowatt charge. So I don't think we're really losing any time by missing that 250 kilowatt peak, although I think it's beginning to taper, but this is the normal taper point for this car. So this last leg of the trip, we went 150 miles and it took a little over 2 hours. We averaged 268 watt-hour per mile. However, we did maintain some higher speeds than last time. It was probably 3 to 5 miles an hour quicker. So our efficiency definitely took a dive. But I'm also starting to wonder if the super strange route planning was due to this car never having really gone long distance. Because as you can see now, the Fort Valley minus 24%, we're already at 28. That's an estimate of 52% before we need to leave, which is extremely close to the 55% that we left with for a 4% arrival here. So this feels like the route planner is starting to figure out how we're road tripping, what's going on, and starting to really become more accurate. Alright guys, welcome back. We are now at 50% state of charge, doing exactly 100 kilowatts charge rate. So we're going to the Fort Valley, Georgia Supercharger, which is at a Buc-ees, and it'll be 2 hours and 33 minutes according to the trip planner, 156 miles, and we are going to unplug here at 55%. So far on the road trip, we've done 455 miles. This is our second charge stop, and we've used 115 kilowatt hours with a total road trip efficiency so far of 253 watt-hour per mile, which is a big improvement over my old Model Y. I was lucky to get 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour with that vehicle. 253 watt-hour per mile, which is roughly 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour, is pretty amazing considering the speeds and the wind conditions. We did have a crosswind for a little while there in Kentucky, and it has been in the high 30s for pretty much the entire trip so far. So the motors have been cold, the battery's been cold, the cabin's been cold. I have not been that cold because I turned on the heat, but otherwise I would be cold. So yeah, it's been definitely not ideal conditions for a road trip, but the car just goes right through it. All right, guys, according to the screen, we have added 40 kilowatt hours and we're at 54%. So at the moment, it just ticked over to 55. So we're gonna go ahead and unplug and take off. We're still doing 97 kilowatts, which isn't bad, but it's pretty far from the 250 kilowatt peak. So it's time to get out of here and hop on the road for another 2.5 hours. Alright guys, looks like the next leg of the journey is going to be about 200 miles away. So it's 9:18 a.m. I'll check on the efficiency when I get back. But for now, we're going to walk through these pumps and head into the store for a restroom break and some good breakfast. Alright guys, we got a full station here at Buc-ees. And yeah, day before Thanksgiving, so everybody's out and about. They were completely out of Buc-ees fresh brisket sandwiches, all their breakfast sandwiches, everything. So we got a Cobb salad here with some kind of avocado dressing. Totally forgot to mention, but we drove 156 miles. Drove for about 2 hours and 10 minutes. Got an efficiency of 243 watt-hour per mile, which is pretty good because we had the highest speeds of the trip on this leg. And yeah, overall it was just a very uneventful drive. Pretty nice. We got to see the sunrise, so that was a lot of fun. But yeah, we're at 60% now, waiting probably for maybe 10 more percent, and then we'll leave. All right, guys. Breakfast is done. We're at 71%. I'm going to let it tick up to 72 and then we'll take off. Alright guys, we are coming up on the Gainesville, Florida Supercharger, and according to the map, it is now full. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get there, somebody will be leaving, we can plug in and continue on. But if not, then this might be the first time that I have ever needed to wait to charge at a supercharger. We've traveled 226 miles since we left Buc-ees in Fort Valley, Georgia. We've been driving for 2 hours and 58 minutes. And our average for this leg of the trip was 229 watt-hour per mile, which is low to mid 4 mile per kilowatt hour, something like that. Took a few minutes, but a very nice lady offered to move her vehicle since she was done charging and just waiting on Burger King, which is in the same parking lot. Alright guys, our charge is progressing along nicely. I can't remember if I recorded it. If I did, I'll insert the clip right before this. But even though the station is almost full, when I plugged in it was full. We immediately shot right up to 251 kilowatts, which for some reason is the fastest. It should have been the speed we were getting the whole time, but this is the first charge we got it. And hey, I won't complain. Fast, 250 kilowatts is 250 kilowatts. So we're down to about 158, 159 here at 39%. And we have another 143 miles to go before we arrive at our destination. So we should only be here for maybe 5 more minutes, and then we'll be taking off. Alright guys, we are at 49% and we have fallen below 120 kilowatts, and the route planner says we'll get there with 9%, so let's roll. Editor Antonio here. I don't know what happened to the last clip of this video. It just disappeared itself. So I'll go ahead and just make a quick outro here. The trip total was about 1,000 miles, and it took about 16 hours and 15 minutes, and we made 4 stops. We stopped in Knoxville, Tennessee, Adairsville, Georgia, Fort Valley, Georgia, and Gainesville, Florida. And all 4 of those stops were generally very smooth. Even the final stop in Gainesville, where I had to wait for about 2 minutes to charge. I started at about midnight from Ohio, and it was freezing when I left. And when I arrived in Florida about 16 hours, 15 minutes later, it was 82 degrees, which was awesome. So yeah, it was a really good trip overall. The infrastructure this year was much improved from last year. Unfortunately, I don't have a video for that, but you know, there's tons of articles and headlines going over this same phenomenon. The stations themselves were quite busy, which makes sense. It was the day before Thanksgiving, so basically everybody was on the road. But even with everybody traveling at the same time, the throughput, at least at Superchargers, was really high, and so it never really felt particularly stressful. People were constantly unplugging and leaving as they moved on to their next station, and so all these people coming in could just plug in and then get on their way. Yeah, like I said, it was overall just a very relaxing, surprisingly good road trip, considering the amount of traffic and the new car and the having to fast charge it. But I look forward to seeing what next year brings with new V4 chargers that were just announced. They're supposed to be higher voltage, 500 kilowatt max. At this time, it doesn't look like cars like the 2024 Model 3 are going to be able to take advantage of that greater than 250 kilowatt speed. But either way, we should see massive improvements in speed, reliability, and just the sheer number of chargers, which will be awesome. I'm also looking forward to the rollout of Iona. Those charging stations are supposed to be industry backed by a whole bunch of car companies. I can't remember exactly which ones right now, but it's the majority of the large car companies coming together to build a North American variant of the Ionity network that you may or may not be familiar with in Europe. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.